In today's episode, we are talking to Abbi Perets. She is a copywriter with 20 years of experience working with some of the biggest brands in the world and the coach that moms turn to when they want to break into freelance writing. As a mom of 5 kids, including one with significant special needs, Abbi understands the unique challenges moms face when they build businesses. You're going to hear some tips today about copywriting that you should definitely implement into your business. And you're going to hear her struggles when she was first starting out as a freelance writer and how she turned her struggle into a prosperous business, along with helping herself with a community of moms and how she then helped the moms in that community start their businesses. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Savvy Scribe Podcast, a podcast for healthcare professionals who want to build a profitable writing business. I'm Janine Kalbach, your host, and I am a mom to 2 boys. I'm a wife, a Great Dane lover, a registered nurse, and a content writing business owner. I am committed to help you moving your business forward because I've been there. I get it. I understand that life is busy and distracting, but many of us are burnt out at the bedside, working too many hours, and are ready for a change. Every week, I will deliver actionable advice and thought leaders in the industry to help you move along in your business. Welcome to the show. Right now, you can save $20 on our mini courses, Plan, Create, Launch, Land, and Grow for $139, down from $159 until August 31st, 2020. Go to www.thesavvyscribepodcast.com and click on courses. Welcome, Savvy Scribes, to another episode. Today, I'm here with Abbi. Welcome to the show, Abbi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
You're so welcome. And you guys, Abbi has so much to offer us today with her advice and her experience that we're really going to hone in today about some copywriting skills and just tips for client prospecting and working with clients that she can provide for us. And she has an awesome Facebook group that we'll definitely mention. And all the things, right, Abbi?
All the things. Let's do it.
Let's just start at the beginning here. Tell us how you got started in writing and, where your business is now.
Sure. Gosh. Okay. So I'm approximately 937 years old. So I've been doing this for a very long time. I started over 20 years ago. The first job that I ever had, the only job that I ever had, was I was hired as a junior copywriter for a boutique marketing agency in Tel Aviv, in Israel. And they hired me because I spoke English and I knew how to use a computer. I did not know what a junior copywriter was, but I figured that I would learn that part on the job. So I did. And they would give me things and they'd be like, please write about this thing. And I would ask really intelligent questions like, what do you want me to say about it? And they would tell me, so I would write about it. And I did that for about a year. And when I got pregnant with my first baby, actually in the beginning, I thought, like everybody thinks, like, oh, I'm going to go back to work. I'm going to be amazing and do it all. And then I had the baby and I was like, yeah, I'm not going back to work. So that was the end of that. And I decided I wanted to be a freelance writer. And again, I really didn't have a clue what that meant, but I figured that as a fairly intelligent human, I could kind of, I could work it out on the way. And so I've been freelancing for over 20 years. My oldest is 21 now. And I really, everything that I've learned by doing it. I've learned on the fly. I've learned by reading books. Back in my day, we didn't have Google to help us find all these things. So I had to go to the library and read actual books about these topics. And everything that I've learned by doing it. So
that's awesome. I mean, nurses out there, this is just evidence that we don't need to have a degree in journalism. We don't need to be an English expert or some marketing guru. It is. No. It's had to do with a lot of Googling for me too. Granted, thankfully, the era of Google was here when I started. But right. Like, I think when we were talking the one time, you were talking about like Alta Vista.
Like Alta Vista, yeah. Back in the day before Google, man.
Yeah,
I just want to say, all of your nurses, like, they've got degrees. I mean, they're different
there's
degrees,
something
right? But
there, right?
there's something. I have no degree in anything. I dropped out of college twice. It is the bane of my mother's existence. But I have been working as a freelance writer, like I said, for more than 20 years. For the past couple of years, I've been making six figures steadily. And now I'm well into the multi six figures. And it is totally possible. And just think, you have more education than I do. So
I love you're so humble. You're so humble, and you're so like, oh, I did it. You could do it too, because I did it. But that's truly like the mindset I have too. Like, it's hard. It's hard work. We're not going to say it's not hard work.
Right.
But
you have to actually do the work.
You do.
But there's a path. There's a path, and you can follow the path.
That is correct. Although back when you were doing it, there was no path.
There was no path. I invented the path. I forged the path. But like, you can figure this out. Like, and today it's much easier, because today there is a really clear path. One of the things that I do in my own business, and that I encourage my students to do, when you want to do something, literally anything, like if you want to do anything in the whole world, somebody else has already figured out how to do that thing. So copy them, like literally follow the path of someone more successful and just do what they're doing. And that will take you to the same kind of success that they're having. So,
well, and that's
I'm a big
good
fan
point.
Of not working harder than you have to.
That's a good point. And you know what I've also figured out, like in my business, is follow the people that have been doing it right. Because there are so many courses, and there's so many thought leaders out there that you're like, well, I don't know who to follow. I don't know where to start. This is a good price, but sometimes, money's not going to give you value sometimes. So you're going to pay for what you get.
Look at people who have, you're definitely going to pay for what you like. Look at people who have businesses that you want to have. Look at people who are doing really what you want to do and who seem to share your values. For example, there are a ton of people who teach freelance writing, and I've never really thought of any of those people as competitors. I think that we all kind of line up with different audiences. I really speak to moms. And so not many men follow me. There are a handful of guys who like get on board with my teaching, and that's cool. But I really speak to moms. I speak about, having kids on your lap while you're doing things, learning to work in small blocks of time. I don't swear because there are always kids around. So like, there's a certain type of person who's going to resonate with that, and who's like, yeah, that's who I want to be like. That's who I want to learn from. And there are people, like, if I don't have, I have multicolored hair now, but that's only because of COVID. So, go from brown to blonde. But like, I don't have green hair, and multiple piercings and whatever. And there are plenty of people who do have those things. And if that's more your style, if you're like, no, she's way cooler, I want to learn from her, that is totally cool. Like, find the person who best represents you and your values and what you want your life to look like, and go learn from that person.
Well, and I think that's a good point too, because as a mom myself, I agree with you. There's a lot of things that my business looks like, not only like towards nurses, but I always focus on that productivity, the organization, like really those flows in business. And you don't get that from other people. Not to say that any of their processes are bad, they're not. But like you said, your own style has to resonate with you. And there's also older, not to say I'm like, super young, but there's people at the retirement age that have started businesses, and they have a different type of style than I do. And that's cool. That I support them, and I'm in their Facebook groups, and I like them on LinkedIn. I agree with you. There's so much to go around, and the audiences, even if, health content, goes away, there's still other ways that I can deliver value, but that's not going to go away. And there's so many places that we can pitch as nurses that we're not going to be competing with one another.
Oh gosh, no. Like, other writers are really not your competition. There is so much work out there. In the very, very beginning, when I started teaching other people to get into freelance writing, somebody said to me, aren't you worried about creating competition? And I was like, do you know how much work I do on a daily basis? Yes. Like, there's so much. I want some other people to share some of it. I don't want to do it all.
That's so true. That's so true. So we talked about, having someone a little bit ahead of you and follow those paths. So Abbi, I want to be just like you. So how how would I get there? What are some tips to just getting started even, or where
Yeah.
at what point were you making six figures? I want to ask you that. Like
Sure, absolutely. So it
was
took
there a
me a
big
while.
transition?
There really was. I will say when I started out, I was always able, like when I first went freelance, I probably started out making, $1,000 or $2,000 a month. And I was doing that consistently. And at the time I had two small children. And then I have five kids total. So, and I had them over the course of 10 years. So I had a lot of small children in a fairly short amount of time. And I took time off all the time. So in the beginning, I probably was making $1,000 or $2,000 a month. I was able to scale that up within a year or two to about $3,000 or $4,000 a month. And I was pretty much able to stay there fairly consistently for the first, I'm going to say 10 to 12 years of my business. Now, the thing that I did that I encourage my students to not do, or to like change fast, way faster than I changed it, was I was a generalist, meaning I would write whatever you wanted me to write. If you were paying me money, I would write you nursery rhymes. I did not care. I did not specialize. I did not look for one kind of thing. I was a freelance writer. I didn't really think of myself as a business owner, certainly not as an entrepreneur. I was a freelance writer. I wrote whatever people would pay me to write. And I did okay. I was very happy with my life the way it was. Like I said, I had small children. I was taking time off each year to have babies, to nurse, to be more present in their lives. I have a kid with pretty significant special needs. So I did a lot of working from waiting rooms during speech therapy and developmental therapy and occupational therapy and all of the therapies. And with a lot of disruptions in my life. So the level that I was at felt very good to me. I was contributing significantly to our family's finances. I was able to be at home. I was able to support my kids, and I was happy with that. What happened later is my kids got bigger. We moved. We have lived in Israel and in different parts of the United States over the last 20 some years. So we moved from first Southern California to Houston, Texas, and then back to Israel about 10 years ago. And shortly after we arrived in Israel, my kids were in full day programs. I was thinking about expanding my business. And then my middle son was diagnosed with cancer, and that shut everything down really fast. I didn't do any work at all for a couple of years. I literally notified all of my clients over a single weekend that I was out. I handed off projects, I transitioned things. And then for a couple of years, I just sat in the hospital because as a mother, I have magical powers. And by sitting next to my child, I kept him alive. That's a known fact in science.
Yes. Nurses, we know this.
Right, exactly. And so that happened.
Wait, I'm going to pause you here. Did you not go crazy just sitting at the bedside though? Like, I know as a writer, my mind is always going. Like, that had to be hard. I mean, that had to be hard not to have an outlet. Granted, at first you're like, I am present. This is it. I am solving the world.
I was writing, but in a very different way. I was not writing. I could not serve clients the way I wanted to during that time. So I was writing, but I was writing like Facebook posts. I was blogging on my personal blog that has nothing to do with business. I was, there was a lot of screaming in my car, frankly. So there was a lot of that. It was really hard. My son had a lot of complications. Imagine. And
now, is this your special needs child?
Yes. And part of his, so he has a rare syndrome, and it's a genetic syndrome. So because his DNA is different, he had different reactions and responses to all of the medication. Actually, one of his oncologists is now today doing a study on, kids with his syndrome and his form of leukemia, because he responded completely differently to what was expected to multiple medications. So that did not help anything at all. It was insane.
How old is he now?
He is now 16 and a half.
Oh, wow. Okay, good. Yeah. And is he well now?
He is healthy. He's developmentally disabled, and he is on the autism spectrum. He is phenomenal. He is an incredible person. He is bilingual, and he speaks not only is he bilingual, he speaks English and Hebrew. So two totally different languages, alphabets, directions. Like his brain, I will never understand it. It is a phenomenal work of art. But like he cannot grasp that 3 + 3 is always 6, always, every single time. Like it's never going to be something different, right?
Well,
like
his
that
mind is so
concept,
advanced.
gone.
He's probably
Right.
like, but really, it could be.
I don't think it's that. I love my son very much. Math is not his thing, but like he's amazing. He's incredible. So he is healthy now. Thank God. And he is, he's in special education. He's been in special education his whole life. And we look forward to him being healthy and living a long and happy life.
So how old was he when you were at the bedside?
Yeah, it was just before he turned 10. It was a month before his 10th birthday. So
goodness. Okay. So you took a break from those clients. You were super mom. Still having 4 little ones at home.
Yeah, that was not easy. So that was kind of a nightmare. At one point, each of my 5 children was in therapy, like in a different therapy. Like it was insane.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've broken them forever and I accept that. And, I'll be paying therapy bills for many, many years. That's okay. We'll move on. By the way, in case your listeners have not picked up on this, I speak sarcasm and Black humor. Like that's how I function.
Oh, that's life, okay. So. It's nurses. That's all we speak. So you're good.
There you go. There you go. So, anyway, so after it's weird, right? Like you are in the hospital and when your kid has cancer, there's all these rules. And if they have a fever of over 38 degrees, you have to go to the ER and you call the on-call oncologist. And like, there are all these rules. And then one day they're like, okay, you can go home now. And you're like, what? And they're like, yeah, you're fine. Go home. Right. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So that was a weird transition. So my kid was, better, although even when you're better from cancer, like there's a lot that is still going on. He was on oral chemo for another year. Like if anybody in the school had chicken pox, he couldn't go to school, that kind of thing. So there was still, a lot, but he was technically better and everybody around me expected that I would be better too. And I was not. Mm-hmm. I was very far away from better. So I would do that thing where, on the outside you look like you have it all together, but I was really a giant freaking mess is, I believe, the technical term that we use to describe that. So I would get everybody out the door in the morning and then I would just collapse on the kitchen floor and like sob like a crazy person. And it was messy. It was messy and I didn't know how to find my way out of that. So I was in a Facebook group because there's a Facebook group for everything. I was in a Facebook group for moms of kids with cancer. And a lot of these women, so I lived in Israel, right? So we have socialist medicine and all of my son's care was covered. So I didn't pay anything out of pocket for, the 2+ years of hospitalizations. And my kid was at times hospitalized for, 9-10 weeks at a time. He had 5 surgeries, including, he had an ileostomy and he had for 9 months, he had a stoma and then they were able to reverse it, thank heavens. And like multiple complications that are not typically associated with leukemia. But anyway, we didn't pay anything for any of that. But in the United States, I've heard healthcare is kind of a mess. And so that was hard. Like there were a lot of families who, they're in danger of losing their homes when you have this medical debt piling up and there's nothing you can do about it. And so scary stuff. So I was in this Facebook group with these moms and they're adjusting to life. And like I said, even when your kid recovers from cancer, it's not totally straightforward. You can't immediately go back to a 9-to-5 job because your kid is still going to be home a lot. They're tired. They're not quite ready to be back in school full time. Certainly if there's any kind of chickenpox outbreak or anything like that at the school, you've got to protect your kid and keep them at home. There's a lot going on. Mm-hmm. So these moms needed a way to bring in some cash really to keep food on the table. And I started very informally teaching some of them about freelancing and just kind of sharing that knowledge. And that kind of took off in more ways than one. One, it got me up off my kitchen floor. It gave me a reason to kind of move forward with my life. It gave me a purpose. And it was really exciting to see these women then, coming back and saying, oh my God, I did what you said and it worked. And oh my God, like we can buy groceries this week. Like we can keep the electric on. Like that was kind of powerful.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, so then I started learning a little bit more about like putting together a formal course on this process. And I started looking into all of the writing that goes into putting that together. So like there's, you don't just put a course together and say, well, I guess people will come and buy it now. Like there's a whole lot that has to happen. There are email sequences you have to build out. There are sales pages. And I fell in love with that piece of writing. So I started looking for clients who needed that. So a couple of things happened all at once. One is I had this course and I was hanging out with other people who were creating courses. So I was in front of this audience of potential clients who needed these email sequences and sales pages. I discovered that I really enjoyed writing them and that they were very difficult and time consuming for other people to write. And so all of a sudden I had this specialty that I could get very good at and be the person like known for doing this one thing for my own clients. So I was able to, one, get really good at it really fast because it was all the work that I did, right? So I would do them again and again, and I would learn lessons and apply those lessons forward and that kind of thing. And I was able to charge more money, and I had great solid processes around the work I was doing. So really from 2017, when I started all of this, so the first 6 months, I didn't do any client work at all. I really just focused on building up the course side of the business, just building out content and whatever. So I made far less. In 2018, between client work and courses, whatever, I made $70,000. I'm really open, by the way, about money, so I hope that doesn't offend anyone.
No, I think that's awesome.
I made $70,000. And then in 2019, I more than doubled that. I went to $170,000, where about a little bit over $100,000 of that was from client work. And then this year, we're recording this in early July 2020. And I've passed that number already. So, so there's big goals in place. And again, a significant portion of that still comes from client work. And well over $100,000 comes from client work. And so I've just been able to scale up the client work without having to put more time into it. I'm simply able to charge more money for the same work because I have really solid processes, because I'm really well known, and because the work drives results for clients.
Of course. Do you guys love what you're hearing? Why don't you join me in our group on Facebook? It's a closed group for those that have to answer questions and get in, but it's the Savvy Scribe Collective over on Facebook. You can visit our website, www.thesavvyscribepodcast.com, to also get a link. See you in the collective. You were able to find a niche, right? So now we're definitely just doing more sales pages and email sequences, right? That's your big thing for clients. So who do you target? Do you target companies or more solopreneurs? Creative?
So I target established course creators. So my criteria is you have a course, you've successfully sold it, you've at least 10 people. And really I'm more and more, I'm working with, very experienced people who've been selling their course for over a year, who can really talk about the transformation they deliver for their own students. I'm working with people who are making high multi-six figures, low seven figures or more, because they have the money to invest in systems and processes, because they understand the value of good copywriting. So I'm really focused in who I work with, and I prefer to work with women. I don't exclusively work with women.
Sure. Well, it's just more of your target with helping women too with the course. So tell us, let's get to the tips on how we can do this in our own businesses, or, what tips do you have for us today with some copywriting for our clients?
Absolutely. So one, I definitely do recommend, don't wait the 12, 15, whatever years that I did to niche down, do that way sooner. Just please, for your own sanity and your bank account and all the things, do that sooner. Second, a really easy copywriting tip that you can apply to just about anything you're doing and make it more effective is take the word I off the page and replace it with the word you. this helps us really. So the basic tenet of copywriting is what's in it for me, where me is not you, the writer. Me is the reader, right? The person you're writing the copy for. So switching out I and replacing it with you helps bring that reader into whatever you're writing. And I recommend doing this everywhere as much as possible. I recommend this on your About Me page, which you might think should actually be about you, but you would be wrong. I would understand why you get confused because it's called About Me, but it's really about how I serve my clients. And it could really be called About You. So
I love it.
So yeah, like even on that page, certainly on any sales pages that you're writing for clients, if you take the word, because your clients are going to come to you and they're going to be like, I am awesome. And here are 47 reasons that I'm awesome. And here are 973 awesome things about whatever it is that I'm selling. And if you say to that client, that is so fantastic, you really are awesome. Okay, but let's talk about how awesome your students or your clients or your customers are. And you pull those things out of them, and then you can rewrite that sales page. And it can be sometimes as simple as, instead of on a sales page saying like, I will teach you, reframe that as you will learn, right?
Yes,
And that simple reframe can help draw the reader in and help them see themselves inside of that program or service or whatever it is more clearly. And it becomes more effective. Another major thing is being a writer really comes down to just not being afraid to ask why. Like a 2-year-old, think of yourself as a toddler. Why? But why? But why? Just keep asking that. But why, right? In the sense of, your client will tell you, okay, my widget has, it has 437, gigabytes of power. Great. But why do I care? And then they'll tell you, well, that means that it can process information faster. Great. But why do I care? And you keep asking that question until you get to something that people actually care about, right?
Absolutely.
So because clients speak in features and your job as the writer is to uncover the benefit. Wow. Can you hear the giant trash trucks going by on my
Is that what that is? A little bit. Sorry, listeners. You're fine. So, the why exercise, I actually have nurses who want to start their businesses do that with their own business. Like, ask yourself why you're doing this, and ask it like 6 or 7 times. I mean, you will get that bottom thing of whatever that is. It's important. It's so important.
It's so critical. And what's most important is your why has to be more than I want to make money.
Yes.
And it definitely has to be more than I want to work from home and only work 3 days a week. Because if that is the reason that you're doing this, you're never going to get to that point, because you're never going to put in the work necessary on the front end to get to the place where you get to work 3 days a week and be from home and blah, 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 and all the things. That's not why.
That can start your why. Right. Why? Oh, I want to work from home. But why? Because I want to be with my kids. Right. But why? Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to be, who doesn't want to be with their kids? But why do you want to be with your kids? Right. It goes deep, 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 deep.
And so I think that's it drives down into that real motivation. And that's the stuff that's going to get you working even on the days when it's frustrating. So hugely, critically important.
Yes. So, okay, so that's the why. Use that with clients, you guys. You can even use that on a client call. I mean, sometimes they are just talking about their business or about why they need a writer, But you could even say, I'm going to do this little exercise with you, and I want you to really hone in to really help me understand your real reason why you would want a nurse content writer. And they'll be open to, who doesn't like a little activity, right? A little game in a sense to make the client call a little more fun. So add it into your scripting too, to help clients understand their why. It's a very good tip there. So we're going to niche down. And you guys, this isn't just health content. No, don't do that. Really niche down.
Go a little farther, a little deeper.
A little more. And then take away that I and put you. That's another easy tip. And the why. Awesome.
You do those things, you're going to be, and I would add into that, and these are like the core principles of my business, which I think are good core principles for most people in the world. Don't lie, and treat people well. So don't lie, meaning like don't, in all the ways, like don't say you're going to deliver this in 2 days if there's no possible way that you can deliver this in 2 days. Don't say that you're an agency with 17 employees if it's just you. Like, don't lie, right? Like, don't lie, really bad. And I extend this, like, I don't work with clients who lie. So like if somebody is selling, so as nurses, I'm sure you've encountered people selling magic supplements or like, let's cure cancer with happy thoughts, right? I don't work with clients like that personally because it disgusts me.
Yes.
So I'll just be frank. So I don't work with people like that. And then the other piece is treat people well. Treat people the way you want to be treated. A thing that happens a lot when anyone outsources work to a freelancer is the freelancer disappears, like goes off the grid. I don't know. It's this thing. It happens to like it happens, right? Don't be that person. Treat people the way you want to be treated. The same way you want to know, I don't know, if a doctor gives you orders for a patient and then you go to follow up with the doctor and the doctor has left for 2 weeks in Tahiti and has left nobody on call in his stead, like that's not cool. You want to know what's not happening, cool. Right? So don't be that guy, right? Like talk to your clients. If you are going to be unavailable for the next 48 hours, that is totally legitimate. Just let them know that, hey, I'm going to be unavailable for the next 48 hours. However, I am working on your project and we are still on track for delivery on, Thursday the 17th or whatever. I am literally offline and available every single weekend from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday for Shabbat in Israel, right? Every single one of my clients knows that from the beginning, but because I don't assume that my clients actually remember things or pay attention to my life, because people are paying far less attention to us than we think they are, I remind them pretty much every week. I'm like, I'll be offline now and I'll be back on Sunday. So if you send me email, I'm not going to reply. Like little things, make them aware, let them know, keep them apprised of where the project is. There is nothing worse than giving money to somebody and outsourcing this project and then being stressed about, well, are they even actually working on it? I have no idea. Like that's the worst. Don't be that person.
Exactly. And couple things you said, and then I have a curiosity question, but hold on, I'm losing my train of thought here because you said so. Let me ask my curiosity question, right? My curiosity question is totally like, what brought you to Israel?
Oh, sure.
Because you said you were from Pennsylvania. You didn't say this on the show, but you told me in the past.
Yes, it is true. So I grew up in Reading, Pennsylvania, like the railroad on the Monopoly board. My family is Jewish, and we were very active in our synagogue when I was growing up. And I visited Israel as a kid a bunch of times with my family. And when I was in college the first time, in the semester break of my sophomore year, I had just turned 18 years old, and I went on a volunteer program to Israel, and I had a really good time. And I decided, well, I'm going to move to Israel. And I came home, and I remember my brother had an orthodontist appointment, my little brother. I went with my mom to take him to the orthodontist, and we were sitting in the waiting room, and I was like, I want to move to Israel. And she was like, listen to me. Don't tell your father I said this, but if you really want to go, you got to go now before you have a boyfriend and a job and whatever, and things that tie you down to America. So if you really want to do it, you have to do it now, but don't ever tell your father I said that because I'll deny it. So I was like, that's it, and my father was like, you can't do that. And I was like, I just turned 18. I can do anything I want. And my dad said, let me rephrase, darling daughter of mine, I am not paying for this. And I was like, I don't need your money, because I was really stupid. And
aren't we all
did not realize, right? Like I did not realize what that meant, so I moved to Israel with like $50 and a couple of suitcases, and I went to a kibbutz and I learned Hebrew and I joined the Israeli army and I met my husband, and we got married, and then he's Israeli. And after we got married, he was like, I did not actually, by the way, my dad forgave me many, many, many years ago. So everything's cool there. So my husband was like, yeah, I did not marry an American to live in Israel. Let's go to America. I heard the streets are paved with gold. And I was like, so actually they're not, and it's not that great. He's like, no, but I really, really want to live there. So we moved to Southern California and then later to Houston, Texas. And after 11 years in the US, my husband was like, so it turns out America is not awesome. And I was like, I know. And he was like, I want to move back to Israel. And I was like, yeah, It's not like totally awesome here, but we do have Target and Amazon. And he was like, that is not doing it for me. So we moved back to Israel, like I said, about 10 years ago. And we have been here ever since. So,
and you're loving it? You'll stay?
Look, there are a lot of advantages. Socialized healthcare is a big one when you have a kid. And Israel in general is a country that was founded on socialist ideals after the Holocaust, and is more set up to take care of the weaker parts of the population than, say, America. You guys are not doing great right now, I'm going to say. So
no, no, not anyway.
So we're pretty happy here. Yeah, we're pretty happy here. We're sticking it out. But really, the supports are here for my son. My fifth son was born with. This is so cool. You guys are nurses. I don't have to explain everything.
Right.
My fifth son was born with microtia of the right ear, and so with atresia. So he needed ultimately a bone anchored hearing aid, which meant surgery to, stick a screw and a magnet in his head. And now he uses Baha made by the Cochlear Company. And so all of that surgery was completely covered. It didn't cost us anything. The hearing aid itself didn't cost us anything.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and all of his checkups, all of that, that's all covered. And there are certain, he's just entitled to certain therapies via the school and things like that, that I think I would have to fight a lot harder for.
Oh, absolutely. And the navigation to try and get that is ridiculous in America.
Yes. So here, cool. They came after us. They were like, so when are you going to do this? And we were like, oh yeah, we've been really busy with our other kid who has cancer.
Yeah,
and they're like, right, well, now that that's done, let's get let's get this kid some surgery. Like, oh, okay, sure.
Right.
So,
yeah. I love it. So after my curiosity question, it was probably like blaring in my brain. So now I remember the other thing I was going to say is I like that you take control of your schedule, obviously with the Sabbath and all that stuff that you guys celebrate, to be able to shut that down. Now, nurses, we are not like that. We work holidays, weekends, blah, 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 blah. There's a difference in freelance writing. Nothing's an emergency. Okay. And I've said this before, that nobody's going to die because you didn't write an article right in time. And not saying you should push deadlines, but there are reasons, and no one's going to fire you because of that. There's times where you are just bogged down, or you want to take a Friday off and a client wants to have a meeting on a Friday. You need to just say, I can't. And I know it's hard because you struggled to get that client, but take control of your life and your schedule a little bit. If your why, you get to the bottom of that why list, and your why has to do with taking your kids to different places, and you had that on your list on Friday to take your kids on a hike, and now your client wants to do a call, don't move your hike. Go on your hike with your kids and tell that client you are available on Monday, and take your weekends off too, because you can. I can't stress that enough, that I think definitely with controlling your schedule, controlling your life a little bit, that's the point of freelance writing and working from home.
Absolutely.
Have that flexibility.
And you mentioned nobody will die. One of the examples that I give my own students is I tell them, you guys will appreciate this. I tell them, listen, freelance writing, I'm not going to belittle it. It's what we do matters. And it is hard in the beginning. However, think about the fact that every brain surgeon at some point had to pick up a scalpel and cut into somebody's brain for the first time, right?
Yes.
Like watch one, do one, right? So they watch one, and now it's time to do one, right? You're not picking up a scalpel and slicing into someone's brain. You're writing something. So even if you get it a little bit wrong, no one will die.
No one will die.
Think about that. It's not brain surgery. So yeah,
you
do way harder stuff every single day, where life and death does hang in the balance. So we all know, I mean, my dad's a surgeon. Surgeons are great, doctors are great, but nurses do the real work. Let's be honest. So
you need it firsthand with your kids.
I absolutely 100%. If I wanted something to get done, I went to the nurses, right? So, so you do much harder stuff every day. Pitching a client for potential freelance writing work is nothing compared to the stuff you do. Like, seriously, think about it. And
it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. So I'm not going to keep you any longer because we are going way over time, and that's okay because you have delivered so much to my audience today, Abbi. Where can people find you? Where's that Facebook group? What's your website? Tell us about your course.
Sure. So I'm over at successfulfreelancemom.com. And if you go check that out, you'll find a link to my free 5-day course on how to be a freelance writer. You'll find some information about my big course, Writing for Money, which is a paid course, but it's my Zero to Freelance Writer course. You can find me on Instagram at Abbi Perets. I do have a Facebook group, a free Facebook group. And if you think I know the URL for that by heart, you're crazy. But it is linked from my homepage, so you can find it there. And I know Janine said she would put it in the show notes. So.
Absolutely. Everything will be in the show notes, you guys. So thank you again, Abbi. Go see all them kids that you have. And thank you again for all the value and advice you're giving our audience. I think it was so humble and so valuable. Thank you again.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
That's a wrap for today's episode of The Savvy Scribe. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, we'd love for you to subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. Until next time.